And we are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicinda, and it's Wizard Week here at Plus One EXP. Every day of this week, we are sitting down with me and my good friend Jay Dragon, along with some amazing guests to talk about each part of the 7-part pact, one day at a time, diving into the different wizards representing the pact and the part of the worlds they represent. A bunch of really amazing people have been helping build and play test and develop this game with Jay for the last few years. We're going to talk to some of them. Some of them are going to be names you're going to know. Some of them are going to be people who are just really cool people who we know who got a chance to play the game. But today we are beginning with the end in mind and talking about the Necromancer. As we dive into that, let's a couple different things to know. If you have questions, feel free, type them in the chat. We're going to have a big Q&A at the end, but if there are ways I can work them in beforehand, go ahead and do that. We're all real people here on this side of the screen, so if we need to take a pause, somebody needs to step off camera for a second, any of those kind of things, those are real and normal things that happen, and we want everybody who's on our stream to take care of themselves. We want you to take care of yourselves while you're watching also, too. Today, our conversation is going to kind of happen in a few different parts. We've got our welcome right now. We have our wizard focus, the world focus, and we talk about the game, how it's played, and then whatever else, which is where we'll be doing live Q&A with y'all, along with talking about anything else that stands out from the play of the game that we didn't get a chance to talk to in one of those 3 parts. Also, if you're watching anywhere, I normally never say this, but hit follow or like or get notifications when we go live, because again, every day for the next 7 days, we are going to be sitting down and talking about different parts of the 7-part pact, and those will go immediately over to our YouTube channel for video on demand afterwards. Also as a bonus, we're going to be interviewing Avery Alder on Wednesday night also too, to talk about belonging outside belonging as part of our Show Me Your Moves PBTA design series also too. So great busy week here at Plus One EXP for Wizard Week also too. But with that said, let's meet my co-host and dear friend Jay Dragon. Why don't you tell people who you are, what you do? Tell us about the 7-part pact also.
Hi, Tony. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jay Dragon. I am editorial director at Possum Creek and lead game designer at Steve Jackson Games. I am a queer game designer based in Philadelphia, and I have been for the past 4 years working on 7-part Pact. 7-part Pact is a fantastical, ornate game about wizards. The 7 most powerful wizards of this fantasy world, a world that was once nearly destroyed by magic. The only thing kind of holding it together now is that these wizards have made an oath to each other, to their offices, kind of to hold to their responsibilities. It is a game about power, about masculinity, about magic, about kind of an intricate conceptually clockwork machine ticking towards inevitably falling apart. It's 8 interlocking board games and 9 books and a bizarre, ornate project that is currently available on Kickstarter.
Awesome. And if you go to ttrpg.link/the number 7 PP, it'll take you over to the 7-part pack Kickstarter page. You talked about this as an intricate set of gears. Tell us a little bit about the gear of the Necromancer. Very high level. Why does the Necromancer matter in the world of 7-part pact?
So there's many reasons to start with the Necromancer. I thought he'd be a good place to start because the Necromancer is kind of both the wizard who's most concerned with what their own kind of deal is, and also because they're kind of the janitor of the pact, right? The Necromancer has the Gates of Death, which is these 11 kind of kind of the worst, slowest plinko machine ever made. And it's the job of the Necromancer to basically make sure that the dead go down to the final gate and pass on into the afterlife, whereas the dead are constantly trying to rise up again. And so that's kind of just a good. It's a kind of almost like a little like tower defense, like a little. It's a board game structure that I think serves as kind of a microcosm for the game as a whole. Right? It's this. It's a thing that is kind of an endless little problem that is just constantly there's no such thing as winning. You're just pushing the dead back down into the pit. And the Necromancer is a sad weirdo who has to deal with that.
I don't think there's ever been a better description of death in a game than a sad little ongoing problem that we have to deal with. And so, excellent. Well, we brought some experienced necromancers in to talk about what it's like to be a necromancer. Let's meet our guest for today. Eclipse, let's start with you. Why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, and tell us a little about anything you got going on and what's if you could bring one part of the necromancer or a couple parts of the necromancer into your life, what other parts of their look or what other items, what would you want to have as a person?
Hi, my name is Darling Demon Eclipse. I make weird and erotic TTRPGs. I'm also the host of a TTRPG discussion show called The Dovecoat, and I on review of the Necromancer's things, I was struck by the options of extinguishing all light present, blinding all with deep shadows through which you may move freely, and the object, which is a set of elven ancient chimes. Or sorry, that says 11. I, I might be, yeah. A set of 11 ancient chimes, which only ring when the dead are near, and whose tune is loud and harsh to the souls of the dead. Um, if I'm a necromancer, I want to be left alone, is kind of the, the thesis there.
That does make sense. Love it. Well, glad to have you with us. Also go check out Eclipse's work. Drop the link down in the chat below. Also, too, anywhere you're watching. And then we've got with us Brian, also too, creator in their own right, but one of the co-founders of Many Sided Media. Talk of the Table and My First Dungeon on the weeks it's released are part of my weekly. Every week, listen. Super excited to have you on the show. Why don't you tell people more about who you are, what you do, and where they can find you online?
Well, yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show. I love talking about this game, so this is great for me. Yeah, my name is Brian Flaherty. I am the co-owner and CEO of Many Sided Media. We're a TTRPG podcast production company and network. We make shows, like Tony said, like My First Dungeon. There's an actual play podcast that teaches you indie games. We just finished up our series on Perils and Princesses, which is a fantastic OSR game. We're actually doing, if you're looking for me, more live streaming with me. 9 p.m. tonight, we're doing our cast season talkback. That's a talk about with the whole cast, plus the designers of both the game and the adventure we ran. It's going to be a hoot and a half. I'm the co-host of Talk of the Table, which is a TTRPG conversation podcast where we get into the nitty gritty of how to make games and how to make a career out of this hobby. And also, we've got a show coming out. Season 2 of our show, Bitcherton, is coming out September 1st, which is an improvised Regency comedy podcast. Kind of like if you took Bridgerton, but totally fucked it up. It's a lot of fun. We got a great cast, including Katie Maravich, Ify Wadiway, Carolyn Page from Dropout, Cassie Wilson, and myself. And then we've got a whole host of crazy guests coming on. So definitely tune in for that. And man, I've gotten to play this game a couple of times. I've gotten to play a bunch of different versions. I've gotten to play the Sorcerer the first time. I got to play Necromancer my second time, and then I got to play Sage my third time. Quick shout out to Dr. Emily Friedman for this lovely scarf that she made me for our playthrough when I played the Sage. But the thing that stands out to me of like what I would want of the Necromancer is I am a sound designer and audio producer by trade. If I could silence the breeze and still all sound, dampening the calls of nature, and in turn ensure that my own footsteps are as silent as I pass, let me tell you, outside my window is New York City, and it loves to be on mic. So that would be thrilling. And also, I am recently updating my wardrobe. I realized I hated all my clothes, and so I decided, hey, let's fix that. A pair of sturdy hobnailed boots, which will never wear away and will never fall apart, no matter how far I go from home, sounds both poetic and practical. So I like that.
I love it. This is great. So excited to have both of you on. Drop the link to Many Sided Media's main thing. You are also doing a lot of streaming this week. Is this part of a push to get some more patrons?
Yeah, so we're doing this kind of entire month. We're doing a Patreon drive, trying to just send people over to our Patreon and to check it out. We have, I believe, last time I counted, over 96 hours of just Patreon exclusive bonus stuff that is like bonus actual plays. We've had a bunch of great designers come on and run their games for us. People like Felix Isaacs ran us through the Wild Sea, one of my all-time favorite one-shots I've ever gotten to play. Caleb Zane Hewitt played Triangle Agency with us. Jasper William Cartwright did Force of Extinction. There's other ones that I'm forgetting, but those are all great. Plus, we have some like bonus episodes of Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. They're only available there. We did like a round table with Quinns from Quinn's Quest, Dr. Emily Friedman, and Brendan Lee Mulligan from Dimension 20. ton of great stuff, and we're just trying to shout it from the rooftops, let people know about it. And also, if you sign up this month, it's 15% off for a yearly subscription.
Awesome. Love it. We're huge fans of what y'all do over there. Would love folks to go over and support you also too. Really excited to dive into everything that we're doing here also too. And in the chat, Gimli, really excited to hear they're playing the Necromancer for their very first time starting this Friday. So really glad that you could hop in and be a part of this conversation. Again, feel free to ask questions as we go. I'll pepper them through as they make sense, or we'll have time for some Q&A at the end. But with that said, let's look a little bit more intentionally at the wizard we're talking about tonight. Brian, would you actually mind? You got such a great voice, such a great microphone. Can you read the first paragraph underneath part 1 of the Necromancer for us?
I would love to. Behold the Necromancer, known as the Keeper of the Gates, Skull-bearer, and the Grim Lord of Death. He is the guardian of life and death, maintaining the ashen gates which protect the archipelago of Isha from the unquiet dead. He is oft of a melancholy and cold temperament, and his fate is governed by the planet Saturn and the metal lead. Legends say the first necromancer was loathed by others of his kind, and his signature placed upon the Pact reluctantly.
Love it. Awesome. Jay, why'd you make this wizard?
Yeah. So the Necromancer was one of the first wizards I wrote for 7-part Pact. Very heavily inspired by a lot of kind of like the wizard media that is closest to me, especially when growing up. Sabriel by Garth Nix, Skullduggery Pleasant. I think like kind of a lot of that wizard archetype of like I think one of my favorite wizards is the guy who does what needs to be done, even though he knows that it makes everyone hate him and it means no one trusts him. He's like, well, someone still has to do it. I'm gonna be the one who does it, even if it's the thing that makes me unpopular. And it felt like such kind of like the clear cut, like when trying to figure out where to start, it almost felt like the best place to start because it's kind of hard to write about those wizards who are like the Sarumans, right? Saruman is like actually a rather hard wizard because he's kept interesting by his distance. A wizard who's like workmanlike is really easy to write about because it's like very connected into the immediacy of life. And so a wizard who's just a guy with a job, even if that job is like supernatural, I think is a lot easier to kind of find solid footing in. So the necromancer, right? His responsibility is, as Brian read, he keeps the boundary of life and death. He cleans up after the pact, right? He gets the souls into the gates of death. And necromancers tend to be, people tend to make them kind of grim or macabre. They tend to be like grave diggers. They tend to go for like a doom and gloom, but also like often somewhere between like ranging on a spectrum from like what do you call it, like 1800s like Dracula kind of character to like a guy with a job. There's kind of like that's kind of the spectrum I've seen of necromancers.
I love it. Yeah. I'm super excited to dive in. Like every even just doing, I have only played one 7-part Pact one time, by which I mean like one series of play, and just going through character creation. There's so many interesting choices you're making right away as you do this. I know that each of our guests today played this at a different point in its iteration, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of walk through some of the opening questions for character creation and talk about the choice that you made for your wizard also too. I don't think we need to hit all of them, but maybe Jay, if you can pick out a favorite, and then Brian and Eclipse, I think having each of y'all pick out a favorite and talking about the choice that each of you made for that one, or a similar choice if the text is slightly different at this point in time also too. But let's start with Eclipse for that. Do you want to pick one of the questions from the character creation process, read it out for us, talk about the two options, and talk about which one you picked?
Yeah, I'm finding my footing here. I'm trying to recall or I'm looking at it. I'm just trying to think of which of these are my favorite. I think I lean toward, and hang on, we're gonna do a quick thing just because I can then figure out whether this. Okay, this remains. So the question that I was asked as the necromancer, um, in the history and secret section, there was another wizard before you, your old master, who taught you the secrets of necromancy. How did he teach you, and how did he die? Choose one which is known to all, and one which you harbor in secret. Um, let's say when I played, it was one which is known and one which you suspect. My choice for what was known was that he was a quiet man who rescued you from the edge of death and restored you to life, teaching you silently. One day he simply gave you his fragment of the Pact and departed into death, never to return. Uh, it appears as if I didn't have my reading comprehension glasses on because I did not pick a second one, but I do really like that prompt.
Yeah. And this is Jay. This is a thing that comes up for everyone, like your relationship with the previous wizard. Was that an early choice that you made in the process?
So I ended up adding that question. It was one of the questions I added later to character creation, and the reason I did that was because I found that um, it's one thing, right, to kind of make up a cool dude. It would be very easy to kind of imagine yourself to be outside of a lineage, right? And I found that actually, like, one of the things that was really important for me with each wizard, but especially with the necromancer and dealing with death, was that I want the necromancer to feel like someone who is following in someone else's footsteps, right? I want you to feel like you are coming from a bigger lineage, and for it to feel like your old master is someone who is present kind of over your shoulder, sometimes metaphorically, sometimes very literally, as you have the gates of death and your old master might be in the gates of death and he's like there still doing necromancer stuff. um and so that kind of like, how do you feel about your old master was something that became most apparent I really wanted from the necromancer's playbook.
Awesome. Brian, what was your relationship with your magic dad like?
So to start this, when you were talking about the necromancer, Jay was talking about like what do most people normally do with the necromancer, and it's usually like let's make a grim guy. I've really enjoyed with character because when I played this game, we were going to be playing for a long weekend, so we were going to play like I think like I don't know 10 or 12 hours a day for like over the course of 3 days. Um, so I was like, let me just like drive it like I stole it. And so what I ended up doing was I like to go to the extremes. And so I was like, great, this guy is 18 years old. He got the job today. And then it was so much, it was such a cheat code for me to figure out a character, because then it's like, great, the necromancer's game, which we'll get into in a little bit, is punishing. And it's also made harder by the decisions of everyone else. So at any time, the button I could hit that was fun to play and also kind of funny was, hey guys, can we just not kill anybody for a second? I gotta get my house in order, please. I know Jay, you've talked about the necromancer as like the 7-part Pact's janitor, and it really does feel like that, especially when all of a sudden you're looking around and like everyone else is doing their crazy machinations, which often involve killing a whole bunch of people that they don't have to deal with, but I have to deal with, and that ends up being so fun. Like you have a reason to yell at everybody, you have a reason to talk to everybody, and then also you get sucked into your own little game. And I also just love, I I don't know why I found this, but I've been enjoying playing with like aging and I don't know, like wisdom gained in like a lot of characters that I've played lately for whatever reason. I guess I'm 35, so I guess
Not
that's
yet 2 scores, Brian. Not yet
not yet two score. But but for whatever reason, that's been what I've drawn to. And I know for our game, I ended up very early on making a deal with the Faustian, I think, to like I'd get an extra um week of play, or an extra week or two of play, but like every round, instead of it being a couple of weeks, was like 10, like I aged 10 years. So by the end of the game, I was like 100 all of a sudden. And it was fun to like see that growth throughout the process. I had a lot of fun playing it, of being like overwhelmed and naive and harried to starting to get on the level of everybody else. To I never got to like exceed anybody else, but I started to make like my own plays that made sense, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the Necromancer, similar to the old master question, was really the spot where I realized how important it was for me to be like to ask every player, you know, how old is your character? And there's a lot of little things I've loved doing that. Giving people the space to the fact that the idea of like choosing to be someone younger is a very intentional choice, right? Choosing to be an 18-year-old wizard was in early drafts something that people kind of do accidentally just because our society favors stories about younger people. And by shifting it to say like, hey, you know, you are not yet one score. What, you know, what does that make you feel? It allows people to choose it much more intentionally and do interesting things with it. And also I think opens up the kind of playful space of the fact that for wizards who measure their ages in periods of 20 years, right? Uh, uh, Anyone who is younger than 20, sorry, younger than 40 is described as a young fellow, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a much more I think in a very youth obsessed culture, it's very easy to kind of lose sight of stories about people above 30. And I like the fact that in Seven Part Pact, you will regularly have characters who are 65 and are like, I've been stuck in my life for a little too long. Let me, you know, I've got my whole rest of my life ahead of me. Got at least another 4 scores. And it's like, that's awesome.
I really love there's in so many games there are these like little tiny things that shouldn't mean that much, but for whatever reason like mean a lot. And the writing of not yet to score
Hmm.
for whatever reason like tells me so much about this game.
Yeah.
Like it really makes me feel like a wizard. That little bit of world building that's how they look at time.
I love it. Did you know your master before they shuffled off and you took over as an 18-year-old?
I want to say the thing it's been like 2 years since we played this game, but if I remember correctly, it was I like had been picked up by my master as like his apprentice like a month or two ago with plans for me to like be trained for the next 30 years, and then he died.
Yeah, love
And
it.
it was like, oh no.
Love it, love it, love it.
Like
I just got my passwords, you know what I mean? Like I don't know any of the things yet.
like a lot of things in this game, it's very common to have some playthroughs where your old master matters a lot, and then have some playthroughs where it does not come up even a little bit, right? Especially like I've played games where I was like a 120-year-old wizard. And I was like, yeah, I killed my old master. It was a crazy wizard duel. It was 100 years ago. So none of you were alive for it. So don't even worry about it, you know?
Yeah, love it.
I-
Jay, why don't you pick the next question we look at?
Yeah. I'd love to talk about for the Necromancer, I'd love to talk about the way magic changes those who work with it. Because I think the Necromancer has kind of one of my favorite lists with that, which is ties into the age thing where there was a certain point during playtesting I ran into an issue that I've jokingly called like a lack of old man yaoi, which is just kind of like a fear that people like people love making twinks. If you don't do things to stop them from making twinks, they will default to making twinks. And that's I think because our society valorizes skinniness and youthfulness and attractiveness and all these other things. And so it's like let me have some counter twink incentivizations. And one of those is that as you work with magic, as you get older, you get weirder. And so each wizard picks a number of changes of magic, one plus another one for every score they've been alive. And that's a big long list of things, everything from your hair is bleached white from the horrors you've seen, or your eyes are as black as the deepest pits of death. One arm is dead, reduced to bones and rope. You know, maybe even when you stand in direct sunlight, you seem to fade away, or just simply you are dead, your heart is quiet, and yet somehow you still stand, right? Like, and so the older your wizard is, also the weirder your wizard gets to be.
Yeah.
And every single wizard has these wild options that are incredibly fun and help you figure out how you're presenting it. So, do y'all
Part of making a game, oh, just I was gonna say, part of making a game with as much asymmetry as Seven Part Pact is that when you have the chance to be symmetrical, you gotta leap
you
on
got to
it.
do it?
And so character creation is a very symmetrical process across the wizards, and that's because I knew that I was going to invest my asymmetry points elsewhere.
The character creation process of this is like everyone is around a table and we're all kind of like, okay, great, we'll go from step 1 to step 2. And then the second you go to the first like actual round, everyone just goes, shit, Shit! Someone help! What are you doing? What, you're playing a tower defense game? I'm moving these pieces around.
We were
Like,
all doing the same thing a second ago.
No, I've played this game 3 times, and there are some people who I'm like, I have no idea what your game is. I have no idea, no concept at all.
I love it. Brian, what is the physical change you selected? Or at 18, do you get one?
I think I ended up getting one because I kept like aging up.
Oh, that's right.
throughout
You would
the
have picked
game.
multiple as you went.
I want to say it might have been. I think it was when you stand in direct sunlight, you seem to fade away. I really wanted to make this guy like so easy to step on. Basically, I was like, this guy should not be a factor in like any of the meetings. Like, I want to make him the easiest person to smack around, and then turn like over the course of play, see if I can turn like all of the weaknesses that I've set up for myself into potential strengths.
Yeah.
Which, like, you can really read a lot of these as like, yeah, this is bad and tough for you, but then also it gets scary and badass and cool.
Sure, love it. Eclipse, for you, how we haven't found out how old was your wizard, and then what were some of the ways that it had changed over time?
Here's the thing: is that when I played this, I think circa January of 2024, the score system didn't exist at least
yet?
for the Necromancer. But because of just the person that I am and the fact that I was like, oh yeah, this is a rabbi, I played a very old man, and I think, obviously that there wasn't the sort of material mystical effect that age brought, but I think that there was an element of I think a young necromancer is like shit, they're gonna come up, and like an older necromancer has seen has seen the gates fail and has seen someone come back up, or has seen people pass, and I think it's it was interesting playing that role of like, so listen, I'm gonna be very clear with you. I've seen this sort of thing happen before. It can happen now and it can happen again. I'll leave it up to you all if you want to help me out with this. I'm chilling. Like, I got a couple more years in this thing.
Also, distinctively for your wizard, a thing we can do is also just show them, and I put them up on the screen a second ago.
Awesome.
Because you have some art for your necromancer specifically. So we got a little bit of a cheat code with you, but this is one that you did, and I want to make sure I call it out. People should look at the shadow behind the necromancer also too, specifically.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah,
if you are missing that piece.
Your shadow is a monstrous beast which acts with a mind outside your will, which was very fun. I think it was interesting because that wasn't necessarily an axis that other people had to play with, but it was very fun to sabotage my own sort of well-kept, very, very rabbinical posture with, hey, the beast is over there doing something.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, for sure. But like, it's like I said, it was picking the different elements that changed on them over time. It makes you want to pick an older dude just so you get a cooler dude. Like, it is Jay's attempt there. Absolutely. Because I'm like, cool, if I pick this many, like I can get one more cool thing on my guy.
I do remember that when I played the Necromancer, I played the youngest character I played, and when I played the Sage later on, I played the oldest character I played. And doing the Necromancer and having everyone picking like 6 things and making these crazy fucked up guys, and I was like, I kind of disappear in sunlight. I was like, oh, I maybe made I might be playing this game wrong. Yeah. And then getting to be the Sage and making like the crotchiest old man,
who kind of has, doing kind of these vibes.
Yeah, you took all the Yoda options, if I remember right, too.
I did all the Yoda. I made him.
Sage has a bunch of Yoda options, which we'll talk about later this week.
I did. Oh, Sage is a lot of fun. I'm excited to listen to that conversation as well, because I had a blast with the Sage.
That's great. Brian, what's one of the questions that you want to explore from character creation?
One of the questions that I want to explore is like just a big one for the game in general, which is, you are a man, as all wizards are. However, within your heart, and then this is like how you perceive your masculinity, or whether or not you consider yourself a man at all. And this part of this stems from like my favorite joke from this game, which is on your character sheet. There's a place for your name, there's a place for your wizard type, and then your pronouns are already pre-filled in as he, him, which is so good and so fun. But I've talked to Jay about this, where this was one of the first games. I guess probably like the first game where like I felt very invited to like really consider my sexuality and identity in this particular way. And like that was just something I hadn't been invited by a game to do, which was like, oh, this was special and interesting. And like, I don't, in none of the playtests did I like really dive into it or really explore it, or like at least I didn't like make scenes about it. But internally, like I know for the when I played the Sage, like I chose an element of that game where like I lived a double life as a woman. It wasn't something that came up in play, but it was informing my entire like play throughout it, which was just something I'd never really had the experience of doing, and was like a an unexpectedly special thing to get to experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that question. It's kind of the crux of the game in a lot of ways, right? It follows a similar template across all the wizards. For the Necromancer, you've got the first two options being to be a man is to, for instance, to be a man is to protect the people you care for, and you fear you're not strong enough to guard those you love from the cruel carelessness of death, right? So the first two ones, that one, and to be a man is to be sturdy in the face of disaster. You fear you're too soft to handle the heavy weight of life, right? Those are options about like you are a man, but that to be a man is maybe more than what you like. There's a mythic idea of what a man is. Maybe you're worried you can't live up to it, right? Which is, I think, a very essential part of being a cis man and kind of grappling with your manhood. And then the other options kind of push or pull at the assumptions of that question in different ways, right?
Yeah.
There is something wrong with you, that your body does not fit with how you wish it could be. You live a double life as a woman. You were once a lady, but many years ago you crept into the Graven Island, disguised yourself as a man. Or the sands of death have worn away at all that once gendered you. What remains is hardly a man at all. Or there is even a greater secret, which is for you and you alone, right? And these other options kind of being ways to twist and pull on that expectation of being a man, without, I think what was really important to me was to make sure that the double bind, right? The twin goals of, I don't want this to be a game that locks out certain ways of thinking about gender, right? I wanted the idea that anyone could end up being a wizard, even if they were expected to be a man, right? That, like,
Yeah.
as I put it in the Reddit AMA a couple days ago, there's a difference between the expectation of being a man and having to play a man. But I also wanted to make sure that it wasn't a game that I think, like, I wanted to take kind of a stance on thinking about masculinity that was not preemptively kind of excluding. Like, I think it's very easy, especially when you're not of a marginalized gender, to kind of go, oh, well, those conversations aren't for me, right? To kind of like write yourself out of the
100%.
conversation, because you're not like, you haven't done, I don't know, you haven't done the reading, quote unquote. And I was really interested in being like, well, I want to make sure this is a game where if you've got a group of all cis men and they sit down to play it, I actually think that you'll have really fruitful and interesting conversations. Even if you sit down and you all play cis men,
Yeah.
I think you'll still have fruitful and interesting conversations. Right?
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a couple of episodes, my experience of play, when we talk about the Mariner. But I will say, like, it is interesting, like, how, like, as one of I only know that I was the only cis. I don't think I was the only cis man, but I only know that I was a cis man at a very gender diverse table when we played. And it was interesting when the questions would come up of how comfortable are we exploring this. I do feel like there is this both simultaneously, like, look at the cis guy and check and see if he's going to be okay in the game. Sometimes where I was looking at everybody else being like, I am fine. Are y'all okay with? And there's this very, like, invitational play space that it creates, I think, regardless of what your gender expression is, and your gender experience is. Like, it was so great to sit down and look at the options, and I can't wait to dive into a little bit more. But Brian, I had a very similar experience to you, even choosing to play a character who was, like, also a cis man. Like, the choices you're making, Jade, you did such a great job of writing things that explore parts of that, no matter what choice you make, and it's such a great experience of play. I also will say I almost didn't ask anybody their pronouns for any of these streams, and almost just put he him for every single pronoun
my
on the
God.
overlays. But I was like, that feels like a step too far, but it's a good bit.
That one's a step too far, unfortunately.
But Eclipse, how about you? Any thoughts on the gender element? How did it play in with your Necromancer and your experience of play?
I have so many thoughts because the thing that I wound up encountering with the Necromancer is the Necromancer has a very weird relationship with death, and thus has a very weird relationship with life. And I found myself because I wound up picking There's an Even Greater Secret, which is for you and you alone. And I found myself encountering this thing that I've seen I'll say older trans women who have not come out yet. I think that's probably the best way to describe what I'm talking about, which is they hear the phrase "there's still time" and think, oh well, I don't need to do it. And for somebody who knows that there is so much more time, that they could be stuck in hell forever, like, and they could explore their gender down there as they please, that there wouldn't be the expectations of the Pact down there, like, that is such a horrible thing for I think specifically the Necromancer and an older Necromancer particularly encountering gender feelings at a ripe at an older age is brutal, because it's like, well, I'm gonna die soon, and like, no one needs to know, but also like, there's so much denial there, and I find it really compelling. I think there's a lot of weird gender stuff to do with the Necromancer.
Because the Necromancer is, in some ways, one of the more secluded wizards, right? And so the capacity for the Necromancer to do gender deviancy is higher than with someone like the Warlock, where being, kind of one of the more public wizards means that your gender is being more scrutinized. You're kind of more in front of people all the time. There are apparatuses that will punish you more heavily for going against social norms. The Necromancer can get away with a lot of stuff, I think, within the fiction. But also, I think that means that the Necromancer has the most ability to, like, right, if dealing with death is about dealing with the history of the Pact and dealing with the things the Pact doesn't want to think about, right? If the Necromancer is the place where you bury all the Pact's corpses, it's also a really good avenue for burying your own corpses, right? It's easy to throw yourself into your job and never deal with any of the pressures that are building up inside of you. You can just focus on work and kind of let it all go to hell. And I think a lot of Necromancers I've seen are characters who have taken a I'll deal with that next decade approach to their inner lives.
The Necromancer works the night shift, but also lives with her dad.
I feel like if I remember correctly from like all three of the games that I've played, surprisingly, even though the Warlock is the most public facing and is the one that has like the hardest time doing any kind of like gender stuff in the fiction, it often ends up being the players and the characters who do the most with their gender. They're like, oh, this is gonna hurt really bad. Great, that sounds fun. Which is again, I think, just a testament to like the game that I was just building. I was just doing like a kind of a session 0 for a show, and every now and then we were doing like kind of these types of pick lists for a game, and a surprising amount of time, I like, as a producer, I'd kind of be talking to the players and being like, hey, don't pick the middle road thing. Like if it's who you lost someone, who did you lose? Don't make it an aunt that you kind of liked who had a thing once. It's the person you hated most, the person you loved most. And there's an element of like a thing that happens in really good game design is that without you needing to draw attention to it, it has you making those difficult choices, which is a tougher thing for like even like inexperienced players, experienced players, to make the painful choice at character creation when you want to make like you're a cool guy who you're going to play with, to make them shitty or to make them hard, whatever. That can be, it can feel not ideal, it can feel unoptimized, and a game that allows you to do that and make it fun and make making a bad character the most enjoyable thing is a needle to be thread that is thread very well in this game.
Yeah. I love it. This was great. I want to move us forward because we would talk about building these characters forever. Because I need people to understand. We touched on 3 parts of at least 12. I feel like
It's a chonky game,
the
everybody.
character.
It's a chonky
Yeah,
game.
it goes fast, but each of the choices you're making are incredibly rich. They're telling you things about yourself. And we'll get a chance to dive into more of the symmetry in those over the course of the week. So, like I said, stay tuned for that. But one of the things I do want to talk about as we move from talking about the wizard before we move from talking about the wizard into the world, here's the thing I got to know. Do y'all cast any cool spells while you are playing this? Because if we're talking about wizards, I need to know if you cast a cool spell or not. Do y'all remember a spell you cast that stood out to you? And if not, we'll just go to talking about the world or come back to it later.
Eclipse has a good one. I know that already.
Yeah.
I already know you because you told me about this, and it was very impactful on my game design. Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware that this is. I don't think this is a thing you can make today.
No, it is. It is cool.
Okay, good.
I on purpose.
Sodaf, old man Sodaf, being like, you can't cast spells like this anymore. The map of long sleepwalking, which is a map that you hold in your hands and stare at, and it puts you into a deep sort of torpor in which you arrive at your intended destination. It is technically.
Sorry, no, go for it. I was thinking of a different magic thing you made in this game, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, Clips, look at you making a bunch of cool magic things, so we can't even keep them straight.
Oh, there's the fortress. Okay, well,
I was thinking of the submarine, the death submarine.
Oh, I
thought
think
that was this game, wasn't it?
I think that the sub. I'm trying to recall. Did I make that in the AP?
Were you the wall? Because there was also a necromancer who made a giant wall.
I made a wall.
You were the wall. Okay, that was it. Yeah, you made a giant wall that cut through death. And you just
I have
top 3 of the gates by putting up a big wall through them.
I made at least yes. I have in my allies written the Wailing Barrier and its 1,000 earthen protectors. So, but I do also have a funny map that lets you travel by sleeping.
Yeah, I don't think you can make the sleepwalking map anymore, but you can definitely make the Wailing Wall and its 1,000 earthen protectors.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
It is fun because it's like talking through editions of Magic the Gathering, and it's just like, oh man, yeah. I cast this back before they made that card illegal.
Yeah, my whole deck used to be based on mana burn, but I guess now that's not a thing. Do you have any banding cards? What's up?
My Gates of Death wound up being such a zoo. I've literally it appears in the Google Slides for this. I've wound up calling it the Silly Gates of Death. I think some of my favorites are Flickar, the Egg of Sand. There's Pieri, the Plague Physician. Bloodthumb, the Atrocious, who might actually be in existing. We got Golgothax, the Titan of Sand, the Cauldron King. Just
got them all.
It's a delight. It was really fun.
I love it. Brian, how about you?
You know, I don't remember any like super.
You weren't casting spells that game. I don't think so.
I wasn't casting a lot of. I think, and part of my thing was like it wasn't really enjoying leaning into like, let's make this guy just play the game, even though like magic in this game, like for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, the grimoire just of the PDF version or the printed out like stapled pages that we had when we played is a thick boy. It is. I wrote an article about this game that really encapsulates like how I feel about this game, in that I don't think I ever want to know all the things. I like that this game is overwhelming, highly positive. You cannot do everything that you want to do. You can't even get close to do everything you want to do. Maybe if you use magic, which has its own whole fucking thing, like that will fuck up the world. Maybe you can get everything you want. But 99 times out of 100, you've got to make like major sacrifices with the game. You have to like really triage what you need to do. And I was having a lot of fun with being essentially like a non-magic mortal, just being like, I gotta sweep these stairs. And it was great. And I think by the end I did like a little bit of magic to like fuck with my game. I made like a portal from one to the other, so I was kind of like funneling people a little bit. But even that was like, I didn't dream big enough. I was just like, hey, can I maybe like make one of my portals a little bit easier to get people in? And then in another game, someone made like a massive Titan who could also teleport or something. And I'm like, maybe I should have just done that. That sounds.
It's so interesting because for people, I think coming from it's so often I'll see people kind of intentionally nerf themselves when
Mm.
playing this game is they will be like, "Oh, well, I can't do that, right? That would be really powerful if I did it. And I'm good at playing games, and I would never do something that's too powerful. So I'm just going to stop myself right out the gate." And I think it comes from us like both playing a lot of story games and also coming from like I think there's a lot of games that kind of in the story game sphere, in the PBTA Blades the Dark sphere, where there's a certain amount of like, there's an expectation of good faith play, but also good faith play isn't quite defined. So there's a little bit of a pressure to kind of like figure out what good faith play is supposed to be and then do it, which means presumably not kind of rules lawyering or metagaming. And this is a game that's very much designed of like, yeah, no, you can cast the big spell, right? Even like the thing that rules about being I think the thing that rules about being a kid wizard, right, is that you don't have to know how to cast the big spell and you can go in blind. But definitely I think that one of the coolest things, like the reason why I remember Eclipse you making the big wall was because it was one of the first moments in playtesting, I think, when someone really tested my hypothesis that you could go crazy big with this. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a spell that breaks the flow of your domain in half. And that has not in any way stopped the functioning of your game. And I think that maybe it's just true that you can make spells that trivialize or even entirely resolve aspects of your domain, and the game will still be very fun to play.
Yeah.
I was having this exact same thing with just like a week or two ago. I was playing a game of triangle latency,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this has a very similar thing to it, where one of the players was encountering a person who was like being weird, and she was looking at her character sheet. None of her powers were really could do anything in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
and she kind of like asked the GM like, "Hey, is there something in this game like an insight check in D&D?" Because all of her experience was with D&D, and she was reaching for a game mechanic lever that wasn't there, and she was having trouble with the mechanics. And I was talking with the GM afterwards, and what he said that really like turned my lights on in terms of triangle
Mm-hmm.
latency, because all of the powers in that game are truly and well great game breaking.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those powers could completely destroy the game. You will succeed with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that the GM said was like, "Hey, if you have the ability to pull out a clone of yourself, and there's a guy talking to you that's a little bit weird, and that clone can be anything, pull out a clone that has ESP or that can read minds, and now you can read his mind." And even like me watching that scene unfold, I hadn't gone in my head to, oh, do the truly like when you're playing games as kids, like, I've got a sword. Well, I've got a wall that can't be broken by swords. Well, I've got a sword that can only break walls. You get to do that in the game. And once you like turn that on and realize, oh, I can do the truly game breaking thing. I don't have to ask my GM for like, hey, can this spell do like this little extra thing? Maybe if I roll an extra check for it. It's like, no, no, no. Go to the extreme,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and the game still functions. And that is a strange place to play. It's unfamiliar if you haven't played one of these types of games before. I think it's like the biggest hurdle to get over for a player.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do,
Yeah.
boy howdy, it opens up the world for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna push this forward, but yeah, it is crazy to start when you can just play all the spells, like do all the spells at the beginning of the game. Like there's nothing stopping you, and then being like, "But there's nothing stopping me. Should I do this?" Is like the immediate response for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. Let's talk a little bit about as a transition into the world of play and the domains and other elements we've talked about, specifically the game the Necromancer plays. Let's talk first just a little bit about the Graven Isle, because
Okay.
it would be remiss of us to not actually talk about the world when talking about the world. Every wizard has an island in the archipelago of islands. Jay, do you want to tell us a little bit about the overall land
Honestly,
and the Graven Island?
honestly, for the Necromancer, I think we should skip ahead.
Just skip
think
ahead. That's fine.
there are
Tune
other.
in tomorrow to find out more about islands and worlds,
We'll
suckers.
talk about companions next time on the Necromancer Necromancer, we don't need to. We can.
That's fine. That was kind of one of my feelings, but I just wanted to make sure we had a chance to beat on it. That's great. Let's talk about. They've got the Graven Island. It's fine. You
It's
can.
bad.
It's Graven.
It's bad, and
It's
it's
an
bad,
island.
and
Yeah.
it's not. You don't like living there, and
Yeah.
you much rather hang out in your tombs.
You know, there's some places that colonizers name a different thing to trick people into not going there. That's not the Graven Isle.
No.
They were like, listen, we know what we got here.
Well, then let's talk about the Gates of Death and the actual game. This Jay, introduce us to a little bit about. So every wizard has their own game they're playing in their domain. We've kind of keyed that up a lot through this. Talk to us about what's going on here.
So, all wizards have their own game. Each wizard has 4 weeks of time that they spend over the course of an in-game month to perform game actions. The Necromancer's domain is the Gates of Death, which are these 11 gates with little spaces in between. The Necromancer traverses to different depths along the gate, kind of traveling, from the near lands to the far lands to the furthest gates. Along the way, the Necromancer both helps to ferry souls, which are little kind of like fungible dead, right? It's like each soul is kind of one soul token represents one dead person, 2 souls represent 10 dead people, 3 soul tokens represent 100 dead people. So kind of like they're kind of these piles of monitoring the ebbs and flows of death. They also go down to install allies who will protect the gates from foes who are trying to make their way up the gates. And if a foe gets to the top, they break out and they escape into another wizard's domain and start causing problems there. If the soul makes it all the way to the bottom, it passes beyond the furthest gate. It enters back into the whatever. No one knows what lies beyond the furthest gate. And that's the Necromancer's job, basically, is to go around kind of helping souls through, stopping blockages, pushing foes back down. Every month, the souls trickle further. The souls get stopped by the presence of foes. And according to the position of Saturn, foes move forward, allies fall, problems are made. So it's a very slow-moving tower defense system. As I joked earlier, it's kind of the worst slow-moving pachinko machine ever made.
It moves way faster than you think it does.
It does move way faster.
It moves way faster than you think it does.
Yeah, you think you're fine, and then suddenly, bump, 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 there's a
It
phone
goes
knocking on
up.
the door. Yeah. It's kind of intentionally a thing that is a pain to. There's no such thing as winning any of these board games, but especially the Necromancer game, right? Just dead people go in, and foes crop up, and they come up, and you push them back down, and then they come up, and more foes come up, and then you push them back down, and they just kind of keep doing that until you let 1 or 2 of them out because you're overwhelmed, and that's life.
It's just the way it happens.
The way of the world.
I also just like, sorry, God.
No, please.
Just as we're kind of talking about this game, I also just want to call out a little thing that you reminded me of that I'd kind of like forgotten. Again, this is a game that overwhelms you with the amount of stuff. The fucking orrery. Because I'm pretty sure the game that we played in this, for this one, the orrery was like lost, so we couldn't like affect time that much. It is crazy how much of your time you will spend playing this game looking at this fucking wheel and figuring out where the different planets and stuff will be in their alignment, and like calculating out the math of like how is that gonna mess me up in terms of the additional souls, or like this is gonna move here. It's so much fun. It's so much fun, but it messes you up every single time.
It was a fun challenge to make something. The orrery came out of wanting a deterministic ladder table, right? So a ladder table it's used in OSR for stuff like weather, where it's like you roll 2d6 and then it saves your spot on the table, and you roll 2d6 again, it moves your spot forward, and that lets you kind of like simulate a table that remembers where you are, right? And lets you like kind of model randomness, but also random. It never lets you go from 0 to 100. You go from 0 to 7, and then from 7 to 14, right? And you go back to 2 or whatever. And the orrery was like, hey, is there a way for me to have that feeling of like hard to predict, kind of random, but like still with some memory of what came before it, but the feeling of determinism that like you could influence the ladder table if you knew well, if you were thinking about it hard enough, you could keep track of it. You just don't maybe have enough time to. So it's kind of that kind of idea of like with the grimoire, where the only limit on magic is kind of your human capacity to remember what all the spells do. The limit on the orrery is like your human capacity to like model the butterfly effect.
Love it. All right. So I'm just gonna turn it around. Eclipse, Brian, what was your experience of playing the game? What was the learning curve like for you? What stood out to you about trying to keep the pipes of hell flowing smoothly, knowing that they won't?
I was clearly not doing well because one of my rivals appears to have made it to one of the top layers, so there were some things going on. It felt like every time we would go around and my star scene would be like, I gotta go talk to Galatrax and like, I gotta go deal with Galatrax, and it would be just like a scene of me being like, hey Galatrax, literally like get out of this part of the gates, and the Galatrax would say no, and then I'd cast a spell and then he'd leave. And then I'd go to the orrery, or sorry, I'd go to Wizard Moot, and everybody, out of character, had just seen me have this like completely non sequitur like battle with this guy in the gates, in the gates of death, and I had to be like, so listen, it's very important that Gorbnob does not reach the top level of the gates of death.
And every time that happens, the other players don't give a shit.
Yeah, they're like, wait, but I need time for my fucking schemes.
And I'm like, no. We gotta make sure that this guy doesn't come up because he's 1,000 feet tall and he's gonna kill everybody. I don't think you understand.
The thing that I love about the Necromancer's domain, right, is it's also like with other domains, they're a lot more interconnected, right? And so when things go wrong, they go wrong in small spurts that cause small problems for other people.
Yeah.
The Necromancer, it goes wrong in very discrete ways, right? It's that you have everything under control until suddenly you don't have something under control, and then it makes a big problem for someone else. And so people don't give a shit until suddenly they really give a shit, right? And so it's got that janitor quality, right? Where it's like you just spent all days in the plumbing cleaning up a thing that no one else even knew what was going on, and you will never get appreciation for that you spent your whole day doing that. And then they're doing things that are more immediate but also are more small scale. And yeah,
it does feel so like it really hits me, Brian. Like when I'm spending all my turns to deal with my bullshit down here,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden like one guy gets out and then 3 people are yelling at me and I'm like, guys, I saw your turns. You guys did your turns in like 2 minutes. I've had to waste all. I don't get to do any spells because I got to make sure that everyone else's live is okay.
Mhm. Well, and
It is a lot of fun.
that's the thing that I often there'll be a lot of necromancers I'll run into who will have like very stressful experiences playing the game because they'll spend all their time dealing with death. And
Yeah.
then they'll be like, "Well, I just have to do 100% of my job or else I'm a failure." And I'm like, "Okay, well, the gates of death are balanced around the idea that sometimes people get out. So like it's okay for you to fuck up at your job sometimes. It's okay. It's okay for you to fuck up at your job all the time if you want to. This is not a game where being good at the game correlates to playing the game well.
That,
Um, you
that
you
is a
can
question I asked you. I've never played a necromancer, but it was a question I sat down and like in the first session looked up at you and said, "Hey, if I just choose to totally ignore my game, what happens?" Because that is a part of the bigger structure of like, yeah, like if I don't, then it will create things in the world that other people will suddenly have to deal with also too. And it is I can only imagine for the necromancer, it is that great. Well, I'll take a fucking month off, and you motherfuckers can see what happens when you don't listen to me. Because if the janitor leaves on vacation and no one replaces them,
You notice.
you notice real quick. And so, like, I can only imagine how thrilling it is for those moments in play where that choice gets made at the table.
I will say, Jay, what you were saying about like I have to do my job 100%.
Mhm,
For the character that I played as Necromancer,
mhm.
I'm almost positive that I played as my you are a man, as all wizards are. I chose to be a man is to be sturdy in the face of disaster. You fear you're too soft to handle the heavy weight of life, and it's like like so many of these choices and things that are going to end up affecting how you play are seeded so early on in character creation. Like when you pick that, it's one of a lot of cool options, but there's a bunch of stuff that you're choosing. You kind of, not everything can be front of mind. But then the second you get down to a moment of like, what do I do? Those things really do affect you in a great way, in a way that sometimes pick lists like that in games, more of it gets left by the wayside. It's kind of like this is a template that you can draw from when you want to. In this game, it feels like I probably used more of those things than I do in other games where you have like, you roll for a trinket and you probably don't use it. Whereas this game, if there's a trinket in here, you're probably going to be using it every time.
Yeah, and I think like with the Necromancer, I think the thing that I was really important to me, right, is that choosing your character's relationship with their job is a question of player skill, but it's also a question of like what are you getting out of the game, right? And to try to be good at your job or to accept being bad at your job are both ideally interesting character choices. And it's so fascinating the number of times I've had to give that advice of like, like are you right? Because it's like I think that choosing to be a necromancer who tries really hard is an interesting character choice. Feeling like you have to be a necromancer who tries really hard because that's the only way you know how to relate to games is a bummer. And it's very interesting the number of times the piece of advice has come up of like it's okay to choose to be bad at the game, right? It's like it will still be interesting even if you're not optimizing your weeks, which people will like get confused by, but I think comes naturally when you've been playing a lot of story games.
And I think with any type of game,
Mm-hmm.
the times that you have the most interesting game experiences are when you make characters that have like big flaws, and this is something that the more you play the more it becomes obvious. Like you try to
Mm-hmm.
seed these things, like let me make a very obvious flaw that I can play into, let me make this character bad. Like the more people play, like if you're playing D&D enough, like pretty soon you're making the weird character that like all of their stats are 7 because that's fun for you now.
Mm-hmm.
But so many games, even like story games and indie games, there will be a number of times where making something super, it is not okay to be bad at your job. It's okay to make your character bad or like ill, like unoptimized, but it's not okay to then not try your best in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fun to again have a game that just has, I don't know what the magic trick of this game is. And like, is it just the insane amount of complexity that like no matter what dial you turn to 11, something else is going to compensate for it? I don't know. But it does kind of have that magic of everyone can pick a thing that they want to break. And the game will break in certain ways, but the overall experience of play doesn't. And I don't fully know where that is. Jay, I'm sure you have a clearer idea than I do.
You know,
But it is a beautiful bit of magic.
I should have written a manifesto about it. That's
All right. I should have reread that before this.
I mean, I think it's also like a couple of years of scrutiny and playtesting.
Sure.
Like, I think that can't necessarily be,
yeah.
I think that was very useful.
Yeah, there's a lot of playtests where someone would do something as the necromancer, like, oh, well, that wasn't fun. Like, you did it fine, but it wasn't like literally even the thing you described, Eclipse, of like the fact that every month you were having a scene where you like were fighting Galbatrox or whatever. I saw that would happen to necromancers of like not only were they spending every week in death, but they were spending every scene in death. And I was like, oh no, that's no good. I gotta solve that. I can't make the necromancer feel like they gotta spend every scene in death because that's like a level of isolation that I think is like crosses into being boring. How do I make sure the necromancer feels like it's okay for them to have scenes outside? Like I don't want them to be like doing that every month. It's cool if they do it every once in a while, right? But things like that, right? Where it's like catching those little like seeing the ways you'll break the game and being like, oh, I like that you broke the game that way. Oh, I think that you just made the game worse for yourself without meaning to, and that's a shame. So let me see if I can kind of quietly give you the space to when you break the game that way, you make it more fun for yourself instead of making it worse for yourself, right? It's not trying to stop you from breaking the game, but it's trying to make sure that breaking the game that way is enjoyable rather than disappointing.
I'm curious for the Jay, I think we've talked about this for some of the other wizards, but for the Necromancer, was there a big thing that like what were the biggest changes that happened throughout the development of the Necromancer? Like, did it change a lot from conception to the final
The
version?
Necromancer is the most stable wizard through the entire thing. I think there are the going back to when I went back to the very first draft of this when it was set in England, like in 2022,
Right.
Necromancers still got the gates of death, right? They were named different things, they were flavored slightly differently, same thing. The Necromancer, many of the pick options are the same from when I first wrote them. Right, the Necromancer I think is the most like the Necromancer is the only wizard who has not undergone like the closest is that the most recent draft, which I put out after both of you play tested, I added little kind of like in between points between the gates, so I could kind of slow the foes. I could give the foes. I could slow the foes down a little bit, so I had more of a notch to push them to move faster. Right, so now it's like there's a space between each gate where the foe can land, and therefore I can have move the foes forward more often because it won't be as sudden. But like that was it. That was really the only change. The Necromancer was the only thing that's kind of stayed the same from start to finish.
Yeah, when I played, the souls and the ghoul colors didn't exist, and also
Yeah.
the initial arrangements didn't
Yeah,
exist. There was
yeah,
just a default, but
Oh, yeah,
otherwise it is.
Mm-hmm.
You could pretty easily, I think, take my sheet for Sodaf and like
Mhm.
make it into a modern, you know, a modern Seven-Part Pact character.
Yeah.
Awesome. People have asked a couple questions. I want to give time for that, but anything else y'all want to name? Questions y'all have for Jay, or things y'all want to ask each other about being a necromancer? I can also ask the first question while your brains think about that.
Yeah,
I
please.
have a
Oh, no.
thought that I think would be. I at least want to mention it, which is like, as I was driving home from work today for this, I was struck suddenly by like a grief for a person that I had not thought about in very long, and I thought, I was like, oh shit, I think I understand at least one of the metaphors this is playing with, like the fact that, you know, that there can be a there can be an enemy or an ally in the terminus you've not thought of for a long time, and then they sort of resurface. I think it's really interesting to have the Necromancer both of this as this person who can't necessarily like who can never forget grief, but also is like able to separate himself from it to some degree because these people are still around for him.
The thing of the Necromancer, right, where you have these foes who bubble back up again, but also these allies who slowly slip away, is very kind of thinking about grief in a long scale, right? Where sometimes you'll realize, like, oh, there's this guy I've been depending on for a while. When I wasn't looking, he left. That's sad. And then on the flip side, it's like, oh, it's this fucking guy again, right? Like you develop like a kinship with Galbatrax just because it's like, well, you and me, buddy, right? Across, you know, like
consistent at least.
yeah, we've been playing the game for half a year in real life and like God knows how long in game, and it's just you and me, right? You're still around, you're still cackling and made out of bones, and you know what? That's kind of beautiful.
It's comforting.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious, Jay. This isn't particularly about the Necromancer, but all of the games I played, I think we did a season, or like we played a relatively short amount of time for what this game can be.
Yeah.
I'm curious because so I've seen how the game can start to get broken, but also not really in a short time. In like any of your games that have gone like crazy long, have there been any learnings from like the extremes of what a game can be?
I think definitely there have been playtesting reports that have really stood out to me. I think one of them, even a pretty recent one, of a group of people pretty radically remaking the Pact and like taking it on as like a game design endeavor, being like, well, we blew up the Pact, and now there's these, you know, we kind of got this new thing we're trying to build, and so we're gonna do game design challenges to build our new domains, and like that kind of being like the sort of like the real kind of practice to my theory. You know, like I make the claim that game design is, you know, game playing is applied game design, And I
Sure.
feel like long-term 7-part Pact is about really being like, you sure about that, right? Like, see what happens when you're 3 in-game years into the game and you decide to go on a dungeon delve. What do we do about that, right? Like, how does 7-part Pact handle the dungeon delve, right? So we have to make up a whole new system for it, and then suddenly, oh, I guess you're doing game design. The other thing for me was I remember there was this one player who like figured out a trick for basically building up kind of this invincible army of self-replicating staves. I just remember it just being so like paper
Sorry?
problem. They just
What?
they figured out also if
Normal
you
stuff.
if you take the stave, right, you got a staff that can cast a spell,
Sure.
and then you give it animacy, I think, and then the spell embedded in it is duplication. It can cast it on itself to make a second one.
This game rules.
And I think that maybe is one of the few times I've heard of someone of like I was like, oh, I think you did break that, right? I think you busted the game open, and like I do kind of think you let yourselves. I do think if you're not going to clean this up, right, like that's on you eventually.
Right.
Huh.
I
My-
am
my
really excited to
friend-
play this game again and actually do more magic. Actually do more great works.
Yeah, next time you play, you've got to lock in on wizard maxing.
Oh, for sure. Well, I got to get one of the things that like the game is a little easier. I guess Sage. I should have done it with Sage. Is what I should have done.
Yeah.
Next time.
My friend Eden often speaks of poetic crunch, which is this idea of like a series of truths that like compound on themselves in a game and create sort of unexpected outcomes in the same way that like a build might kind of put itself together in a more like numerically oriented game. Your World of Darknesses, your Shadow Runs. And I think that spellcasting in 7-part Pact often has this thing where it's like you roll everything and you read through what you've just done and you're like, oh, this is going to have consequences for this other thing that's true about this place or this other spell that's been cast. And it can kind of... I remember a lot of discussion of like quote unquote the stack in a narrative game, which is when you know it's good.
Yeah, that's the juice right there.
Yeah.
All right, we got to check state-based effects.
So what's the rules for layers and souls?
That's right. That's so good. Cool. Before we dive into answering this question from Vic, Jay, can you tell us a little bit about the Celestial Audience, kind of what it is and how it works within the play of the game?
Yeah, so the reason we didn't talk about much for this one is because the Necromancer doesn't have much of one. But the Celestial Audience is the role you take on when you're not a character in a scene, right? So when your wizard's not present in a scene, you act as the Celestial Audience, and that means you kind of collectively make choices about the setting. You've got specific rules you tap in. You kind of, you speak for kind of aspect of the world. The Necromancer is the Watcher of the Gates, which means that the player is responsible for death, dying, the past, kind of like things that are buried and forgotten, the death toll of magic. This comes up less for the Necromancer than it does for basically any other wizard on account of the Necromancer being kind of the most character focused of the 7, which is also part of why he's a great place to start, because he's really focused on the wizard himself, whereas future wizards are just as much about their Celestial Audience role. With the Necromancer steps up when someone's about to die, when a bunch of people have died, when there's a question of whether or not someone's going to die, right? And so frequently what will happen is the Necromancer kind of is more quiet, taking more of a backstage, and then suddenly, kind of towards the end of a scene, all eyes will turn towards the Necromancer.
To decide. No, that's great. So the question from Vic is, does anybody have any standout moments as a member of the Celestial Audience? Any particularly effective interventions that you remember?
I recall there was I may be mixing up the couple games of this I played, but I recall that there was a wizard's duel on a boat, and there was a moment where I think it was the Mariner was doing something and I was fighting this other wizard, and I had this like, oh yeah, this is a moment of such peril that I need to say, like, you will die if if this thing is not, if you don't intervene on this. And that was fun because, yeah, as you say, like, it's a moment where the the attention suddenly shifts to you when you've just kind of been hanging out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I didn't have a moment of myself doing Celestial Audience, but it was, I was playing this character who was 18 and, didn't have anything. And then, like, very quickly ages. It was like a year for every week. So he was getting older very, very fast. And towards the end, all of a sudden, I got to the point in the character where I was like, okay, I'm going to start stepping on people's toes. Like, I'm going to start making moves. And I ended up stepping on the toes of the Faustian, like, kind of in the background. Like, it wasn't obvious. Like, it was clear to the players, but the characters couldn't necessarily see it. And all of a sudden, like, the Faustian recognized it, and the other player looked at me with such fucking venom and daggers, and, like, just full on, what are you doing? And it was just like the most harrowing moment. I was just like, oh no, oh no, this one hurts. And it was like, it was very fun for me, and as just a player, to have someone like playing off something I've done so strongly. But then on a second phase is to have like this character that I'm playing who, sun passed through him, was just like a person to be pushed around, all of a sudden make a move. Like, that was the moment that I was like building towards that entire playthrough. And then to have it where I start impeding on someone else's domain was really rich and rewarding, and a lot of fun.
I love that. What player was that?
Jay, am I allowed to talk about art?
I think so. I think, yeah. I mean,
It was me playing with Abria Iyengar, and all of a sudden doing the Abria Iyengar face and like intensity, and I was like, it was a very fun moment where we were playing, and it was very. I just met a bunch of these people for fun, and we're having a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden, I was reminded that is a Bria Iyengar. And it was a very cool moment, and a very like intense bit of role play. That was really
the
rewarding.
reason I ask, because I think there's some of the people I know you've got a chance to play with that 100% drives some of like the strength of that response also too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's so much fun. Like the number of playtests I've gotten to play with are with a lot of people who are like very actively performers, and that's just been really rewarding to let this game so much. I mean, we talk about Wizard Madness as if it's like a joke, but it's not. You play this game, like the first time I played this game, we were supposed to play it for like 3 hours maybe, and we played it for like 9. Like, I think I left Brooklyn at like 3 a.m. and I got home at like 4 or 5 a.m. because the trains were fucked. But having a game that so allows players to go, like, to just go for it, to go deep, to go for broke at like every turn, and make you only like I said, you never have enough time to do what you want. The only way to get what you want is to make the biggest fucking moves possible. And so people do, they make the biggest moves, and they're gonna mess with your stuff, and all of a sudden you have to have these confrontational moments. And it is tough to get to those moments in a lot of games. It is not tough to get to those moments in the 7-part Pact. Which is great, which is just lovely.
That's great. I love it. Let's do some final thoughts, questions, things y'all want to mention. I know that the Eclipse just had brought up a question they wanted to make sure we nail, but just final observations about playing the Necromancer. If somebody's going to sit down and play the Necromancer for the first time, like what are some encouragement that you would, as you pass the pack to them, what encouragement would you give them?
It's you've just been given. You're the mayor of a city with crumbling infrastructure. Get in there, pull a Mamdani, set up some buildings, set up some bridges,
balance the budget.
I think that like the most fun I've had with the Necromancer has been when I looked at like the circumstances and tried to have fun with coming up with solutions, or don't, or like there are some really fun things that happen when you fail as the Necromancer. I think that like there are some really great things that can happen in either direction there. I think like, I don't know, every time I like anytime I design something more simple than like a sort of like when something happens you get this little bonus type thing in a game nowadays, I'm like, All right, so like, what did Jay do in Seven Part Pact? It's a delightful game, and it's so rich and complex and weird, but also like I think especially with the physical objects, I imagine like very accessible and very contained for each player.
Oh my god, I can't wait to see the physical. I forgot that this
so
is going to be a
crazy.
product. So for so long, Jay, every time we've talked about this game, there's been a moment where you've been like, and if this just lives in a shoebox under my bed, that'll be okay. And I've just been like, yeah, I love the poetry and the beauty and the magic of that, but also I want this big fucking box on my shelf.
One Calyx cube.
Is it really?
Mhm.
It's a yeah.
It's a
I saw those dimensions and I was like, I know where that's supposed to go.
Yep.
That's
yep.
very funny.
That is
wow.
that's the limiter on its shape. Yeah.
I'm literally looking at my shelf and I'm like, all right, what do I got to get rid of? All right, who's going? Who's going?
Brian, you got any bangers for future necromancers?
Boy, I think even if you don't do it for the whole game like I did, for at least a little bit, lean into just like trying to play this game as best you can, like the mini game that you have, because it is really fun. This like tower defense game, it does lead to so many connections of like when anyone else makes a mistake, you get like it dumps the shit downstream. But also, if you make a mistake, everyone gets mad at you. Like it's you're gonna have a lot of great ways to just interact with other players. That's a space I really like to play in. I like to be the person who's getting like pushed around, and then every now and then I get to push back. That's very fun. Other thing, listen, there is so much in this game. That grimoire is crazy. I looked through it so much, and every time I look through it, I'd still find a new spell. Take some time and like look through the grimoire and make some plans of like a couple of great works of magic you want to cast, because a lot of them, especially the really chunky ones, will take you months. Like you have to plan for them and prep for them and stuff. Those things, when anytime I saw a great work of magic cast, there was always a little bit of it's like, I should have been doing more magic when I was a kid. Like, definitely check out, like, play with that grimoire, play with the tower defense game, and then I think we've talked about it this whole interview, this whole conversation. It's like, pick a section of the game and try to break it. Just like, really go nuts, and you'll have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And just have fun. This game, man, if anyone's not played this game before and you're about to play it for the first time, truly one of the most like outrageous, crazy experiences I've ever had with gaming. Like, this will blow your hair back in a way you've never had your hair blown back before. So just have fun, embrace the experience, do all the things. You won't be able to do all the things, but try to do all the things. With magic, maybe you can. I really love this game.
It's a delight.
I really love this game.
Jay, as the true wizard king, any advice you want to pass on to people playing Necromancer that we haven't touched on?
I think the other thing I'll mention is I think I love Brian's advice of give it an earnest shot, at least for a little bit. I think I will couple that with the advice of it is okay to go if you decide as a player that you don't want to do your board game anymore, you can always go do other things. I think also the Necromancer is the one who most rewards like it is the trick that this game will pull on a lot of people is that they're used to games where when things go bad, they have made other players' games less fun. The Necromancer is the most, you doing your job badly makes other players' jobs more fun because now they have zombies in their realms that are causing interesting game events. So I think alongside, don't be afraid to, like do it earnestly, and also, hey, if some guys get out, let them get out. And let your players be haunted by their past mistakes. Just as a treat.
I love a game where when you do your job good, fun happens, and when you do your job bad, plot happens.
Yeah.
It's really great.
quick round of follow-ups and some announcements for tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be back with Dr. M. Friedman and Serafina also joining us to talk about the Hierophants. Really excited to dive into that. Please come join us tomorrow at checks time 8 p.m. I believe. Yep, 8 p.m. tomorrow evening Eastern time. Just a reminder, if you can't join us at that time, all these things go up on our YouTube channel right afterwards. That's youtube.com/+1exp. You can go find the game back at ttrpg.link/number 7 pp. And I'm saying number 7. I need you to understand. I'm just telling you it's the number 7. Don't write number 7 pp.
That's right. NUMBERSEVEN PP. And when you spell PP, it's PEEPE. So just type all that out in the chat. I know it's a little bit long, but it's gonna be worth it.
It's also right below our faces.
No, you should type it in the chat. Remember, SEVEN.
Check that out. Head over to manysidedmedia.com. Check out what they're up to. Check out their Patreon and all the great things that are happening on there. If you've never listened to Talk of the Table and you want to hear some really great metaphors, catch the last episode of Talk of the Table where Brian just drops them down over and over and over again. Great conversation with a different Jay, but another wonderful Jay. And then go check out all of Eclipse works at eclipse.gay. Check out the Dovecoat. Check out all the great things that she's up to. And also tomorrow we do have a campaign launching over on BackerKit. It's a Brindleverse Triptych 3 short form CFB games remastered by 3 amazing creators and some expanded content. If you're a big carved from Brindlewood or Brindlewood Bay type game play, there's a lot of fun things happening over there for that campaign to kind of celebrate the third party community around it. So that's ttrpg.link/BV3. You want to spell that out for us?
That's BEE, the letter V. That's right. THELETTERVEE.
But yeah, please come back tomorrow. Super excited to dive into the Hierophant. We will be here all week long. And then next week, we will be at Gen Con. Jay, are you going to Gen Con? And then Brian's going to be at Gen Con. And then Eclipse, are you going to Gen Con?
I'll be at my home, unfortunately.
You know what? Someone has to stay at home. If you can't be at Gen Con, good for you. Going to Gen Con,
I'll see you at Eclipse's house next week.
That's right. I hate to go to Gen Con, but I love to see all my friends there is really the reality of it. So we've got some really great new games dropping next week also too as part of that. They'll be available there, but they'll be available on our website also. We don't have a sign off for Wizard Week yet. Does anybody want to workshop one? Should we just say Alakazam and take us off?
Wizard Moot. Wizard Moot.
Wizard Moot.
Wizard
Moot.
Wizard Moot.
Wizard Moot.
We'll see everybody tomorrow at our next moot.
You know what I can do?